Right, and it read all kinds of formats. It really was the first kind of home entertainment system that actually could function that way.
And because of that innovation, that got them the games. That got them the third-party games that they needed. Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9. That got them is Gran Turismo a first-party?
Gran Turismo is published by
Sony.
So yes, effectively it is in-house. It's Polyphony Digital, but it's effectively published in-house. So
Right.
that's essentially a first party.
Right. So you got your Gran Turismo, you got your Crash Bandicoot, you know.
Hey, one of the biggest successes of PlayStation as well is Metal Gear Solid.
Metal Gear, yeah. Konami's Metal Gear Solid, Namco's Ridge Racer, just a wide variety, and also, of course, all the sport.
Ridge Racer.
You're going to do that. Of course, also all the sports games. So they had a wide
Right.
variety of the third-party titles.
they kind
that
of pick
just
up-
sucked them from Nintendo.
That's right, and I think PlayStation did a tremendous job. You don't sell 102 million units by, kind of copying somebody else.
The third issue of price, not so much an issue. It basically didn't hinder nor help them.
But again, it wasn't a problem.
No,
it wasn't
I mean, that's the point. It was they sold for $300, and 64 sold for $200. But the point is, they weren't selling for $600.
That's right.
So or $700, like the 3DO did.
And like you said,
So-
you can see some. There were definitely some games that looked better on the 64. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't a tremendous amount to the point where, wow, this is unplayable on the PlayStation. I've got to get a 64. Or I can't see that.
Right.
And sure, there were some games for the 64 that weren't on PlayStation. I'm thinking of GoldenEye.
Well, yeah.
Any of the first-party stuff, the Marios, the Zeldas.
Any of the first-party stuff. I mean, arguably, Nintendo was still the best game studio out there.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that's really all Nintendo 64 had, was Nintendo stuff.
Right. With the exception of GoldenEye, which is a rareware game. But
I mean, Super Mario 64 is probably one of the pinnacles. They set the formula for 3D platformers.
I remember seeing Mario 64 in Toys R Us, a week after 64 launched, and thinking it was the most amazing thing in the universe. And both you and I were the same way. We were both diehard Nintendo people. I still, at that point, was hoping that Sega was going to be able to kind of do something, because I was a Genesis fan, and really didn't make the leap to CD or any of those other things. But it just never really panned out.
But then again, once we got our hands on Final Fantasy 7,
changed the game completely.
Yeah.
I would like to know, because I think it would really show a departure. I would like to know the numbers of folks out there that had that exact same story, that were diehard Nintendo people that really were waiting for the 64 to come out when it was the Ultra 64, Ultra 64, Cruising USA, yeah. And then all of a sudden, Final Fantasy 7 breaks in '97. And it just, okay, I have to get a PlayStation.
Yep.
Because that was when the rule changed for me. We had a CDI, and the only reason we had a CDI was because my dad, we could play CDs and we could play movies, and it became this kind of multimedia device. The PlayStation was capable of doing all those things too. We finally kind of got to break the rule of no consoles in my house, and we got off our PCs and finally got to play a PlayStation.
I think the whole story of this generation can be summed up in the launch day for the Nintendo 64. Because they had two games at launch, Super Mario 64 and Pilot Wings 64.
Now,
both great games.
Both were really fun.
But that was it.
Yep. And it's hard to innovate. It's hard to lead the market when you don't have any software.
When everyone has left you at the party.
So there's your quintessential example for the game systems. Interestingly enough, though, one of the PlayStation games that, and we can spend a whole nother podcast on this, I think, but one of the PlayStation games that I have to mention here, because I think it's something worth mentioning, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which is a 2D game. Now, it has 3D components, but it's a two-dimensional game, really shows the world that just because we've gone to a three-dimensional space in games doesn't mean we have to have 3D to make a game enjoyable. And I would argue that begins this thought process behind what we know now as XBLA, as the Xbox Live Arcade, as WiiWare and celebrating some of the classics on Virtual Console. I'm using my current console to play older software. It really does a lot, because I know that there's a big fight that goes on in Konami. You can't make a game that's 2 dimensions now, because if you make a 2-dimensional game, you're going to get killed by the 3-dimensional crap that's out there. Anybody that was alive at this time knows what we're talking about. The crap that was out there was just amazing. There were so many bad 3D games out there. The technology was just too out there at that point. So it's worth mentioning that Sony also had that, allowed for that kind of classic winner. There was Symphony of the Night on that console, which is one of the games I would tie to the PlayStation almost as much as I would tie as Final Fantasy VII, as in Metal Gear Solid 4, and it wasn't even a 3-dimensional game. So you still have, I would argue, even that is kind of a difference in the games that are being offered that helps to separate the PlayStation from the 64. And that does it for part 1 of our 2-part series as we take our journey back through the history of consoles, finding the greatest of the generations. Hope you've enjoyed it. We will continue this discussion and go on to future consoles in the next part of our series. Stay tuned to us at the Echo screen at the Clan of the Grey Wolf, and we'll see you next time. There is no reset button. No way in hell we're done in an hour and a half.
How much coffee?